So you know that.
Hmm.
That specific, almost visceral kind of anxiety you get when you look at a teenager.
Oh, yes.
I don't mean the eye rolling or, the messy room. I mean that terrified feeling when you realize this person who just ate a Tide Pod on a dare
Hmm.
is technically, biologically capable of having a baby.
It is a jarring thought. It
Yeah.
really is. You look at them and you think, okay, the hardware is completely online. The factory is open for business.
Yeah.
But the
The
software,
software is still in beta.
definitely still in beta testing. Yeah.
Exactly. And it feels like this massive glitch in the system, like evolution just, I don't know, fell asleep at the wheel
Mm.
and forgot to sync the body up with the brain. And that brings us to the core question of this deep dive.
Hmm.
Is this gap, this teenager problem, is it unique to us? Are we the only species dealing with a body that screams go and a brain that's just screaming absolutely not?
And that is the central hypothesis of the paper we're looking at today. It's called The Chronology of Competence by Victor H. Sertouche. And the hypothesis it proposes is exactly what you just said.
That this is a human problem.
That the mismatch between early fertility and the maturity to become a parent is exclusive to humans.
So basically, nature got it right for everyone else, and we're the outliers. We're the only ones in this awkward, dangerous limbo.
That's the hypothesis. And, I'm just going to spoil the ending right now.
Go on.
It's unequivocally false.
Is it really?
Okay.
Because it just feels so human.
It does feel that way, right? But the data just completely debunks it. This gap, it's not a human error. It's a feature, not a bug.
The feature.
And it is present in almost all complex, long-lived species. We're talking elephants, wolves, orcas, chimps. They all face this exact same struggle.
Okay, wait. If an elephant has to deal with a rebellious teenage phase, I need to know everything about that. Welcome to Today in the Hypothesis. I'm your guide to the source material.
And I'm here to help connect the dots.
So, our mission today is to explore this whole chronology of competence. We're going to look at how nature handles that dangerous gap between making a baby and raising one, and how we humans have somehow supercharged a natural delay into this decade-long chasm.
To really get it, we have to start by deconstructing the word maturity. We tend to think of it as a toggle switch. One day you're a child, you blow out some candles, and poof, you're an adult.
Right.
But biologically, that's just not how it works at all.
The paper describes it more like a mosaic.
Right.
Or like a series of pillars.
Precisely. The source material points to 3 distinct pillars of maturity that, they rarely align in time. First, you've got biological fertility.
Okay.
Can you physically produce the sperm or eggs to make a baby? That's just the plumbing.
Right. The hardware is installed.
Second, you have somatic maturity. Do you have the body size, the fat reserves, the physical stamina to survive the massive energy drain of reproduction without, dying?
Because nature runs on a strict energy budget. You can't run a factory on fuels.
You can't. And third, and this is the big one, is parental maturity. Do you have the skills, the social rank, and the resources to actually keep that offspring alive?
And the argument here is that in these slow species animals that live a long time, these 3 things just happen at totally different times.
Exactly. This is rooted in what's called life history theory. If you're a mouse, you live fast, die young. You breed as soon as you can because a hawk might get you tomorrow. But if you're a slow species...
Like us. Or a whale.
Right, like a human, a whale, or an elephant.
Mm-hmm.
Rushing reproduction is heavily penalized. There is what the author calls an adaptive gap.
A waiting room.
A waiting room, a period where you're physically capable, but you hold off. You use that time to build capital, getting bigger, smarter, higher status, before you spend that capital on a baby.
But does the brain, does it actually know to wait? Because if I remember being a teenager, my brain wasn't exactly shouting caution. It was usually shouting, do it.
Well, this is where the neuroscience gets really interesting. We talk about the teenage brain like it's this uniquely human disaster, where the impulse control center isn't finished. But the sources point out this dual systems model exists in other species, too.
So other animals have that same disconnect between impulse and control.
They do. In rhesus macaques, even in rats, the limbic system, that's the part for sex drive, social rewards, basically the gas pedal, it matures way before the prefrontal cortex.
The brakes.
The brakes. Nature gives the gas pedal before the brakes, kind of across the board.
That just seems so risky. Why would evolution design a teenage monkey or a human to be all impulse and no control?
It encourages the kind of risk-taking you need to leave the nest, find territory, find a mate. If you're perfectly cautious, you'd never leave home. But yeah, it creates a very dangerous window.
That makes me feel slightly better about my high school years. just a little. But let's talk about the parenting itself. There's this Disney idea that animals just have an instinct. A lioness gives birth and bam, she knows how to be a perfect mother.
The circle of life.
Exactly.
It's a pervasive myth. And the primate data just destroys it. Parenting is a learned competence. It is not a software download that happens when the baby is born.
The paper mentions something called the primiparous disaster, which sounds like a terrible heavy metal band.
It really does.
But I'm assuming it refers to first-time moms.
It does. Primiparous just means a female giving birth for the first time. And in chimps and rhesus macaques, first-time mothers are, well, they're often terrible at it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The data shows they hold the babies awkwardly, they struggle with nursing, sometimes they even reject or abandon the infant.
So they're just winging it. They literally don't know what they're doing.
They don't. In the wild, a first-time chimp mom has to work twice as hard, grooming more, hovering more, just to keep her baby alive because she lacks efficiency. She's burning way more calories to get the same result as an experienced mom.
And the source material had a pretty dark detail about this.
Huh.
In some cases, that first baby, it doesn't make it.
No. In some populations, that first biological offspring essentially serves as a practice run with a very high mortality risk. It's a tragic evolutionary cost of this gap.
Wow. That seems so wasteful. If the first baby is just a practice run, you've wasted all that time and energy. How does nature fix that?
Nature invents trade school. It's called alloparenting.
Alloparenting. So, babysitting.
Basically, it's babysitting. In species like vervet monkeys, you see young females who aren't mothers yet acting as allo-mothers or nannies for their siblings or the alpha's babies. And the data here is just striking.
How so?
There is a direct correlation. The more hours a juvenile female spends holding someone else's baby, the more likely her own future firstborn is to survive.
So she's logging flight hours. She's getting her pilot's license before she puts any passengers on the plane.
That's a perfect analogy. She's closing the gap between being fertile and being competent. Without it, she would be fertile but incompetent.
There's another mechanism in the paper that I found fascinating. Adolescent sterility.
Yes.
It just sounds like a contradiction in terms.
It's a brilliant biological buffer. In bonobos and in humans, young females often have a period maybe 1 to 3 years after their first menstruation where they are sexually active but they don't actually ovulate. Or the cycle makes conception very unlikely.
So the machinery's running, lights are on, but nobody's home.
Exactly. Think about a bonobo. A young female migrates to a new tribe. She uses sex to build alliances, make friends, lower tension. If she got pregnant immediately, before she had any friends or status,
It'd be a disaster.
a metabolic catastrophe. So adolescent sterility lets them practice all the social stuff without the huge risk of a pregnancy.
That's incredible. It's literally a sandbox mode for social skills. You get to play the game without the permanent consequences.
It buys them time to get ready.
Okay, so that's primates. But the paper argues that the ultimate example of this wisdom gap isn't in monkeys, but in the giants, in elephants and orcas.
This is really where you see that maturity equals wisdom. Let's look at the elephants. The source cites some staggering statistics from timber elephants in Myanmar.
Okay, lay the numbers on me.
Calves born to young mothers, so under 20 years old, faced an 8-fold higher risk of mortality if the grandmother wasn't present.
8-fold. That's not a margin of error.
It's life and death. And here's the key. For mothers over 20, the grandmother's presence didn't matter nearly as much.
So a 12-year-old elephant mom is fertile, sure, but she's useless without her own mom.
Functionally incompetent, yes. The grandmother provides the social and ecological maturity. She defends the cache. She remembers where the water holes are during a drought. Without that external hard drive of wisdom, the young mother can't bridge that competence gap.
And we see this in orcas too, right? They're famous for their matriarchs.
Orcas are fascinating because they're one of the few species, along with us, that goes through menopause.
Which has always been a puzzle for biologists. Why would you stop breeding? If the whole goal is passing on genes, why turn off the factory?
The chronology of competence explains it beautifully. In orcapods, it's the post-reproductive females, the grandmothers, who lead the pack during a salmon shortage. They have the mental map of where the food was 30 years ago. A young, fertile mother. She just doesn't have that map yet.
So an older female is actually more valuable to the species as a leader than as another breeder.
Exactly. If she kept having her own baby, she'd be distracted. By stopping reproduction, she becomes a full-time library of survival knowledge for her grandchildren.
I love that. But we focused a lot on the females. What about the guys? The source mentioned something called the muth barrier for male elephants.
Ah, yes. The male gap is often even more extreme. A male elephant starts making sperm around age 14. Biologically, he could be a dad, but he's not going to breed until he's in his 30s.
That is a long, dry spell.
It's a forced waiting room. To compete for females, a male elephant has to enter must, this high testosterone rage state. It's incredibly physically exhausting. A teenager just can't survive it. He's not big enough.
You get crushed.
He'd be crushed if he tried to compete with a 40-year-old bull, so he spends 15 years just eating and growing.
Talk about a gap year or a gap decade.
It ensures that only the males who have demonstrated survival maturity, the ability to live long enough to get huge, are the ones passing on their genes.
So sometimes the gap is about size, but sometimes, as the paper points out, it's purely political.
Which brings us to wolves and meerkats.
And this is the darker side of the gap. In these cooperative breeders, you can have a female who is perfectly healthy, fertile, full-grown, but she is socially sterile.
How does that even work? Is it a choice?
It's all about rank. In a wolf pack or a meerkat mob, usually only the dominant pair gets to breed. The subordinates are physically capable, but the stress from the dominant female is so intense that it actually shuts down their ovulation.
Wait, the bullying is so bad it works as birth control.
Stress-induced infertility. It's a physiological response to your social rank. Maturity, in this case, equals dominance. And if a subordinate female ignores the rules and gets pregnant anyway.
I'm almost afraid to ask. She's evicted. Or the alpha female kills the puppies.
That is brutal.
It is, but it enforces the rule. You cannot parent until you have the social standing to support offspring. If you can't protect them, you're not allowed to have them.
The source also compared the Iberian lynx to the housing market, which I found painfully relatable.
It's a direct parallel, isn't it? The Iberian lynx is a solitary cat. A male lynx is only considered ready to parent if he owns territory. Young adults who leave home but haven't found a territory yet are called floaters.
Floaters. That sounds a lot like couch surfers.
They're sexually mature adults just wandering around, but because they don't own any land, they're functionally sterile. No house, no kids.
That sounds remarkably like modern human life. No house, no kids.
Which is the perfect segue into the human configuration.
Right. So we've established the gap is natural. Elephants have it, chimps have it, lynxes have it. But the source claims that humans have supercharged this gap. How have we made it so much worse?
We've burned the candle at both ends. We have pulled the biological starting line forward, and we've pushed the social finish line way, way back.
Okay, let's break that down. First, the biological acceleration.
That's called the secular trend. In the mid-19th century, the average age of puberty for humans was around 16 or 17. Today, thanks to better nutrition and health, it's down to 12 or 13.
So the biological starting gun is firing 4 years earlier than it used to.
Correct. But at the exact same time, we've had this massive social deceleration. We shifted from needing survival skills, like how to forage or hunt, which you can learn by 18, to needing human capital.
Degrees, careers, financial stability, the whole resume.
Exactly. The source contrasts this with the hunter-gatherers. In their society, menarche is at 16, first birth is around 19. The gap is maybe 3 years.
3 years feels manageable. You learn the ropes, you get married, have a kid.
But in the modern world, biological onset is around 12. But social readiness, which we define as financial independence, owning a nest like the lynx, is now pushing 30.
So we've created a 16 to 18-year gap.
A gap that's longer than the entire lifespan of many other animals. And this is where the competence trap comes in.
What's a competence trap?
Complex environments require complex brains, and complex brains take decades to build. To be a competitive parent in a modern economy requires a massive delay. The source brings up the child penalty data.
This is the economic hit that parents take, right?
Yes. And it shows that rushing this gap, having a child before you've accumulated that capital, often leads to poverty traps. Just like a young wolf trying to breed without a pack leads to failure, a human trying to parent without economic capital faces these massive headwinds.
It's interesting because we often frame this as a modern failure. Kids these days are growing up so slow, why don't they move out? But the expert opinion here is that this is an adaptation.
It's a rational response to a high-stakes environment. And what's really fascinating is that human culture has always known this. We've always understood that biology isn't enough.
The paper dives into religious definitions of adulthood, which I did not expect in a biological paper.
It's really insightful, though. Look at Islam. It distinguishes between bulu, which is biological puberty, and rushed, which is sound judgment and financial maturity.
So just because you can marry doesn't mean you should handle money or property.
Exactly. The Quran links property management to rushed, not bulu. Or look at Judaism. The Talmud sets age 13 for commandments. That's moral responsibility. But it sets age 20 for livelihood.
They built the gap right into the law. They knew a teenager wasn't ready to pay the bills.
And in Christian Europe, centuries ago, you had the neo-local rule. You couldn't marry until you could afford your own separate house. This pushed marriage into the mid-20s, even back in the 1600s.
So the Links rule, no house, no kids, was strictly enforced by the church and state.
Precisely. The problem today isn't the gap itself. It's that we've lost the rituals that managed it.
We don't have rites of passage anymore. We just have student debt.
We have what the source calls a liminal phase. Young people are betwixt and between. They have the bodies of adults, but the economic agency of children. And unlike the elephant who has the herd or the chimp with her apprenticeship, modern humans are often navigating this liminal space pretty much in isolation.
That really reframes that whole failure to launch narrative. It's not laziness, it's an evolutionary holding pattern.
It is. The frustration of not being ready despite being able. That's an ancient shared evolutionary pressure. It's the chronology of competence at work.
So what does this all mean for us? If I'm listening to this and I'm feeling that anxiety about the gap, what's the takeaway?
I think it means we need to stop viewing the delay as a dysfunction. The waiting room is where the capacity for success is built.
That's the competence trap paradox again.
Right. To be a good parent in a complex species, you must delay being a parent. Whether you're a male elephant waiting for must or a human waiting for a promotion, that delay is the investment. It's what ensures your offspring actually survive and thrive.
It ensures you have the resources, somatic, social, or economic, to actually do the job.
Exactly. The gap isn't empty time. It's construction time.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better about the timeline of my own life, and I hope it does for you too. That's all we have for this edition of Today in the Hypothesis.
If you found this reframe helpful, or if you know someone who's currently stuck in that evolutionary waiting room, maybe send this to them.
And don't forget to hit subscribe. We'll see you in the next deep dive.